happily provide.
You don't know what you get paid, Mr.
Well, Chair, let me.
I mean, you are taxing already my patients and the patients of the hard-working taxpayer out there.
Let's go back in time to February the 11th, 2016, where at the time, Matt Britton, President of Google Europe, Middle East and Africa, and Tom Hutchinson, Vice President of Google, were invited to the Public Accounts Committee to explain their derisive tax deal with HMRC. Well, the chair and a younger Labour Party MP, Meg Hillier, really laid it out to them of how out of touch they were.
Mr. Britton, I just thought it would be helpful at the beginning to ask a few questions just to set out some of the facts. Can you confirm that your revenues in the UK in the last 18 months were £1.18 billion?
That's correct.
Okay. And your profit in the UK in the same period was £106 million, is that right?
I think that's correct.
Okay. And I think I'm right in saying that 11% of your global profit is generated in the United Kingdom?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay.
That's sales to customers in the
Sales to
United
customers, fine, okay. And globally, Alphabet, the parent company of Google Inc., is the biggest valued company in the world.
It depends on the share price on any given day of the week.
But it has been, that was certainly true in the last week or two, yeah?
At one point it was, correct.
Point, yeah. Well, with you and Apple, but up there vying for that. And can you confirm reports that your chief executive was paid £138 million last year?
I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but
$199 million.
Yeah, in the last few days, a new stock-based compensation was announced for our recently appointed chief executive. That is an amount which is based on stock. The value of the stock depends on the performance in the future, and it vests over multiple years.
Well, it's a lot of money.
That's true.
Yes. And your tax settlement that you announced a couple of weeks ago with HMRC, covering a 10-year period, was £130 million.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll get into what that involves maybe later. But Mr. Britton, I'm just here, we're here for taxpayers in Britain. Do you hear the anger and frustration out there that with those huge figures, you settled for a figure of £130 million?
Absolutely, and I welcome the chance to come and talk to you about this.
Okay.
I understand the anger, and indeed...
Do you really understand the anger, Mr. Britton? What do you get paid, Mr. Britton?
If that's relevant, I'll happily disclose that to the committee. What I understand is...
No, I'm asking you what you get paid.
I'll happily disclose that if that's a relevant matter for the committee in private.
I'm asking you, so it's a relevant matter. Could you tell me what you get paid, please, Mr. Britton?
I don't have the figure, but I'll happily provide it to the
You
committee
don't know
afterwards.
what you get paid, Mr. Britton?
Well, Chair, let me...
I mean, perhaps you could give us a ballpark of what you get paid. Forget the share options, then. What's your basic salary?
It's a salary. I don't have the figure, but I'll provide the figure privately. If it's relevant to the committee to understand my salary.
I'm sorry. Okay, you don't know what you get paid. Well, my point is, out there, taxpayers, our constituents, are very angry. They live in a different world, clearly, to the world that you live in, if you can't even tell us what you're actually paid. And I wonder if you've got tin ears, that you can't hear this. You went out there publicly to parade this tax deal, and you can't.
I'd love to mention what I was trying to say earlier, which is that I understand the anger, and I understand that people, when they see reported things like we're paying 3% tax, would be angry.
But Mr. Britton, you went out and you publicly went out with this tax deal. You announced it to the world, the 130 million, as a great deal.
No, can I be clear? We announced the settlement of a process that HMRC began 6 years ago, where they addressed many of the questions that the committee has raised with us previously about the substance of our operations and our tax affairs. We're going to get into that.
Sorry, but you chose, can I just be clear? We need questions and answers in this. You chose to publicly declare the outcome of the deal. Yes?
The outcome of the settlement of the process was going to be filed in our accounts and therefore was going to become public. And we alerted you, and we alerted the Treasury and the opposition that this was going to become public, given the intense interest there'd been in multinational affairs and in our affairs as well. Yes,
but you went out and told people and told the media that this was going to be coming. You did before it was published information. You chose
at the time it was published because of the interest and the scrutiny that we've had.
I have to say, it seems a bit of a PR disaster, frankly, if you didn't have the nous to realise that this would, in the same week that taxpayers were filing their own tax returns and sweating over the little bit of bank interest, sweating about getting it in on time, and you announced this as a good deal. Why did you do it that way?
Chair, we announced it because the settlement was being published in our accounts. It was the conclusion of a 6-year rigorous independent tax audit in which we're paying tax at 20% like every other UK company. And the questions that you've asked us in the past about the substance of our activities were answered in detail by a fully transparent process which the HMRC conducted, and we were required to pay more tax as a result of that process in proportion the economic activity of Google in the UK. Those are the rules being applied to the facts as they find them.
So let me go back to the figures. On 1.16 billion of 1.16 billion, 1.18 billion of revenues. And 106 million of profit. You paid 130 million over
We're paying tax at 20% on the activities in the UK. Can I remind you, at the beginning of the 10-year period, which is 2005, Google had about 160 employees in the UK. We've invested heavily in recruiting.
We're going to go into your establishment in the UK in a moment. If you could answer the questions. Can I just then ask, of this 130 million pounds, how much is tax? How much was tax, and how much was interest on that tax?
Can I ask Tom's our global head of tax affairs?
Mr. Hutchinson, could you answer that question, please? Of that 130 million, how much was tax and how much was interest?
So 18 million of that was interest. The rest was tax.
Which is, great if most people would get a tough interest deal from HMRC. But let me just go back to your establishment in the UK. You have a big market in the UK,
yes.
Which you would.
As I said earlier, 10% of global sales come from sales to UK customers.
In the UK, 10%. Yeah. So, and how many staff are currently based here? Because lots of
we
figures
have over 4,000 staff, if you include directly employed and contractor staff working for our UK operation.
Okay, so over 4,000 staff, and you're building this new headquarters at King's Cross, which has had a bit of publicity. Can you tell us how much that's costing you?
When we announced it, I think the figure in total for acquisition of the site and the building is about £1 billion.
£1 billion, right. And how many staff will be based there?
I don't remember the full capacity, but we hope to continue to grow. Just to give you an indication, since we first appeared in front of the committee, we've hired about 1,000 more people in the UK. My hope is we'll continue to hire more people, and that will obviously generate more profits and taxes in the UK.
Okay, and yet you maintain that Ireland is where your European operation is based. And
that is true. In Ireland, we have well over 5,000 people working in Ireland. We have a data centre. We're building another data centre there as well, and people in Ireland serve not just customers and businesses in the UK, but across the Europe, Middle East and Africa. We have people speaking 40 languages there. Well, the HMRC visited Ireland and understood their activities.
Just to be clear, we have obviously gone through previous transcripts. Members of the committee who weren't on it before
so just making sure that you're clear. That we should be clear the way we operate is...
I know, Mr. Britton, I know the way you operate. Can I just ask some questions, and we're going to get into more details about that, please. Okay. So your UK operation is more than 10% of your 10% of your business.
10% of sales are to UK customers, that's correct.
And your UK profits generate yet a fraction of your overall tax bill.
Yeah, so it's important to understand that, and I think the committee raised this last time. You wrote a report after we appeared last time suggesting two things. One, we should look at our tax structures, which is what the HMRC has done. Yes. And secondly, we should pay tax proportionate to our UK sales. If those were the rules, that's what we would do, but those are not the rules. The rules are you should pay taxes on the profit on the economic activity. This is at the heart of what HMRC looked at. And Tom can explain more. The application of the complex tax rules, which are 17,000 plus pages long in the UK, they spent 6 years understanding exactly what we do. You asked me when I appeared previously what people do in the UK, what people do in Ireland, and they interviewed our staff here, they interviewed our staff in Ireland, they looked at the systems and processes, they looked at all the legal contracts, and they applied
But Mr. Britton, you do remember, of course, that we called you back in 2013 because what you had told us in 2012 didn't chime with what you then learned about how deals were sealed. I don't want to revisit all that right this moment.
Can I just clarify, because you're making an important point there about our consistency.
I'll let you clarify that. I'll be generous on this one occasion, and I'm going to throw to Mr. Stuart Jackson.
Certainly. The details of how we operate I explained to the committee based on our current operations, and you asked us further questions based on how we were established in 2002 or 2003, which is before I started at Google, and so I was unaware. But I would say that all the questions you asked us and the evidence that was based on, I understand it, was passed to the HMRC, who considered it as part of their 6-year tax audit.
Well,
so all those
we're going to be talking to
at.
HMRC shortly, but frankly, you are taxing already my patients and the patients of the hard-working taxpayer out there. But Mr. Jackson.
Totally agree, Meg. She went right at him, didn't she? No messing, like a red rag to a bull. And quite right too. Why should they get away with paying such a derisive tax bill? Now, I know it's a bit old, but just shows you why I love this side of Parliament. You really get to see these brilliant select committee meetings, and I always learn something new every day, and you also get to see people getting the shellacking they probably deserve as well. I can't wait for Parliament to reopen. Can you? However, what do you guys think? Let me know down below, and I shall just bid you farewell and take care, my friends.